Hello there, it's Carrie Rhodes here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I am playing with the Spellbinders Club Kits for January 2025. These are kits you can get monthly from Spellbinders. There are several kits. You can get them individually. You could also get them in a bundle. There's the large die of the month I'll be sharing today and the wax seal of the month. This is very cool. It comes with wax and a stamp. Then we have our embossing folder of the month, always super fun. I also love the 3D embossing folder of the month for even more detail. We have the Glimmer hot foil kit of the month, the Betterpress of the month, which I am super impressed with this month, pun intended. And then we have our stencil of the month, so gorgeous. And we have our clear stamp and die of the month. There's also two other kits I'm not showing you today, but are also available, which is the small die of the month and the stitching die of the month. Now, as I said, you can get these in a bundle, and when you do, you get 60% savings plus a free product. I'll share that with you in today's video. So here's the large die of the month. I always like to show this one first in my videos and give you a really in-depth look at each of the die cut pieces so you can see exactly what they look like. So here we have our, I'm going to call it a bird cage. I think they call it an atrium. Yeah. So I have die cut the solid piece from that sage green and then the cage part from gold mirror cardstock. I thought that would be really cool. I tried to keep just the outline piece intact and remove away all the excess pieces. I'm going to set these aside and do the die cutting of all the floral pieces and the greenery, which you see here, the stems and leaves. And then I'm going to show you each flower piece individually and how you put those parts together so you can kind of get a feel for it yourself, but also feel free to play around and kind of make what you want with these pieces as well. So here's the main flower, which I think could be a poppy, but I really wanted to play with gold accents on mine, and it's paper, so you can make it be whatever you want it to be. All right, here, this one is really pretty. It has layers, and what's really cool is the largest flower that you die cut out is going to press the detail into the paper so you can see how to layer on these 3 extra pieces. That's super handy. Spellbinders is great about those kinds of things and the little details in the petals where it has the extra lines that are cut into the paper but don't cut away. It just adds detail. Awesome. Love, love, love that. So let's put this flower together. You can see I'm gluing that center of the flower to the back of the largest petal and then adding on the 2 side petals. So easy to do once you know what you're doing. So hopefully this little video will help you. Actually, it's not really a little video, is it? No. It's quite long. I know that, and thank you for watching. Okay, so for this medium-sized or smallest of the large flowers, we have an outline piece, and then we have 2 pieces that work together, that outline piece and the detailed piece. I die cut them together from a lighter color of cardstock, and then I'm going to layer this over that plain solid one that's in that reddish color, that kind of ruby red color. And then that's going to have the red show through the openings on the second piece. And there's also that small little detail piece for the center. So that's what that one looks like. And then you have all these really small blooms. So there's one that's a little bit bigger. It has a full flower and a half bloom, or like one you're seeing from the side. And then there's stems to go with it. So the one that has the half flower obviously goes with the half flower. The one that's just a dot, that can go for any of our flowers. You can also go with those full flowers that is the bigger of the size that I'm showing here. That's confusing, sorry. But these smallest flowers can go on this branch. I also like to use these flowers by themselves without a branch, so you'll see that today. There's also this die that cuts out the tiniest dot of a circle you ever did see. Yep. And then you have to like keep track of those and get them out and stick them on. It's tricky. So you can have it, or I'll show you some other ways to put a center in the middle of your flower without it if you lose it or you just can't. You just can't. It's too tiny. There's also 2 little butterflies in the set that I think are darling and such a fun accent to have. All right, now we're going to put this together and I'm going to show you how I did it. And there's lots of fun ways you could do this, lots of colors you could use. I really tried to arrange the flowers inside in the way that the package shows you, so you can always fall back on that if you're like not a floral arranging type person, which is totally me. The only time I really arrange flowers is on a project like this, so I do feel like I need a little bit of a helping hand with that. And the picture on the packaging is going to be your friend for this. But also, once you make one, sometimes it makes it a little bit easier to do it again the second time. And you have all these gorgeous dies now, so you can really play with it and come up with some beautiful arrangements in your own style. All right, so now I'm just laying things out where I want them to go before I start committing and gluing things down. For me, it's just nice to kind of get a visual, and then I kind of know what I'm doing and I just start gluing. You could also use some press and seal here, where you lay everything out, press a piece of press and seal wrap onto this, pick it up, glue everything from the back and stick it down. That's a really handy way to do that. I do that sometimes, and sometimes I just like to go for it. So whatever you're feeling in the mood for, whatever feels helpful to you in the moment, do that. Okay, so here you can see I'm using some of those flowers without stems, those little flowers. I love that. You can just arrange them here and there, tuck them in little places that just need something, or even cover up something that you think does not look great. I love that about little flowers and little butterflies. Okay, so here's the arrangement. This looks amazing just like this. Like, you wouldn't have to put that outer detail piece on if you didn't want to. Lots of options with this die set. I use it a lot in today's video to make my 5 cards, so stay tuned for the different ways you can use this. All right, so there it is. I think the gold is gorgeous for this little atrium. It's so pretty, isn't it? It just looks so fancy. It's so super fancy. For my butterflies, I don't know if you noticed, but I used some foam. This is the glittered craft foam from Spellbinders. I love it. I use it a lot for little accents like this. It's just so pretty. It gives it that little squishy dimension. I had to cut a third one and stick it over here. I think embellishments are great in, clusters of 3. All right, we're going to set that aside and work on the background. This is the embossing folder of the month for January 2025. It makes a really cool kind of geometric but abstract at the same time kind of background. So I did just white embossing. I love this look for almost any card. A white embossed background just, I don't know, kind of gives it a touch of elegance. Yeah, I really like it. So I added a little strip or scrap here of gold mirror cardstock, so it would look like this is hanging, and I thought that was a really fun little addition. So I'm putting plenty of glue on the back of this so it can stick down over my embossed background, and then it's time for a sentiment. This is the clear stamp of the month. It's got smile and hugs and then a bunch of sub-sentiments that you can put with that, but they also are great stand-alone sentiments where you wouldn't have to use the smile or the hugs either. I am going to stamp mine out with some black ink. I love this totally black from Dare to Be Artsy, and this says, "May your birthday be filled with great moments." I love that sentiment. Plus, isn't it just awesome to have birthday cards on hand, ready to send in different styles? Yeah, it is. So, if only I would actually send them. I'm working on it. I'm always working on that. It's always my New Year's resolution to send more cards. All right, so I added that sentiment with some foam squares just to give it a little something extra to stand out from the background, and having that popped up creates a little bit of a shadow and really gives it the look I'm going for. So I added this to my 5x7 card, which, by the way, it's like almost every single time I do the large die of the month, I am making a 5x7 card. I love A2 size cards though, but you will see this particular die on an A2 in today's video, so stay tuned. Okay, let's make some fun, super fun backgrounds. I am bringing in this crafting foam that is heatable and you can press into it and kind of make your own stamp. I'm going to do that with this Glimmer Hot Foil plate of the month. You just heat up that foam for a minute, and then you take your element, which mine happens to be this hot foil plate, and press it into the foam. And then it captures that image as it cools, and you can use this as a stamp. It's so fun. If you've never used this before, it was part of the Simon Hurley line. They do carry it at Spellbinders, and I am inking it up with some Distress Oxide ink. It looks fabulous. I love it. Now, here's the thing. This is going to give you what I would consider a more loose, abstract kind of background. This might not be your thing. Maybe you like super clean and super crisp, you know, kind of looks. Not me. I love this. And then I like putting crisp, clean things on top of it. Now you'll notice I did spritz it with water. That is personal preference. I like a splattery loose look, so I did that. And then after taking the first kind of print or press, I spritzed it again and took a second one so I have a background I can use at a later date, or you can just make a bunch of cards. So I end up using the one on the left, my first one. Also, this is really easy to clean up and use again. Just wet it, wipe it. You're going to heat it again, and that pattern disappears. Plus, then it's ready for another background. This is the 3D embossing folder of the month for January, and I'm going to take the side that has the pattern raised up, which is the back side, and then I'm going to press that into the stamping foam. It is so very cool. The 3D embossing folders are usually very detailed with different depths of dimension, so it's really fun for the stamping foam. I am using some what is this? Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide to ink this one up. I just wanted to create some different colored backgrounds, but also when I'm creating these videos with the Spellbinder club kits, I find it really fun to kind of coordinate all my projects together and kind of have them have a cohesive look. So I'm trying to pull out some colors that I used in that atrium card, that first card that I showed you with the large die of the month for these particular backgrounds. So there's that one. It is really cool. All right, I'm going to clean that up. No, I'm going to take a second print. On all of these, I took a second print, and it just gives you a little bit different vibe, and they're also really fun to use maybe for die cutting if you don't actually love the whole background, or doing something on top of if you don't love the whole background. But I pretty much loved all the backgrounds I made today. So let's do one more set of backgrounds. This is the Betterpress of the month, and I'm super impressed with it, like I said at the beginning of the video, because this comes with plates for doing Betterpress, and it comes with dies, which I love. But not only that, if you get the Deluxe Caboodle, which is all the club kits, they're going to send you a stencil set to stencil these butterflies. I know, I love it. It's like the trifecta. You got the Betterpress, you got the dies, you got the stencils, but guess what? You don't have to Betterpress it, right? You can do this, you can stamp it. This is one of my favorite backgrounds that I'm doing right here, these butterflies. Now, this is going to give you the reverse image. So once you stamp these, you can't really use those dies to die cut these out. So this is going to be a background. I did speckled egg, I think, ink for this one, and I am going to do it twice. So I did spritz it, I picked it up. It's very ethereal on the bottom, like a little bit more wet, but I'm okay with that. I actually use both of these backgrounds for my cards today, but with the first two backgrounds, I only used one of each. So I think I have to say that this background is my favorite. If you have a favorite of these backgrounds or cards today, I love to hear that. So leave me a comment below and let me know if you have a favorite for sure. It always makes my day to chat with you guys. Okay, I'm bringing back that clear stamp of the month and stamping out the word smile. And I'm going to do that with some clear embossing ink. I had a little trouble getting it out of my stamp pad holder. I actually have done a bit of rearranging and organizing in my craft room, and the spot this was in, I had yet to take it out of the new holder, and it couldn't be on the bottom. I couldn't grab hold of it. So time to do a little bit more rearranging. I put something else on the bottom and it worked perfect. So anyways, maybe I'll be sharing more of that with you. I'm trying to create a space in my craft room where I can do live videos. Tell me what you think about that. Do you guys like live videos, like crafting in real time? I would love to know your thoughts on that, because it's something I am adding to my channel in the new year. So I need your thoughts, your comments, your input. Let me know what you think. Okay, look at this die. It totally die cuts right around this word. Isn't that awesome? So fun. So I did gold embossing on that. It fits perfectly in the center of this image. So whether you're hot foiling it or you're stamping it, it's going to work great. I brought back the large die of the month. I'm bringing in some flowers. I'm going to do black and white images, and it just so happens how I die cut out these branches, I loved the negative piece. I'm going to save that and I'm going to use it in this video on another card. Okay, these branches, they're very thin stemmed, so it's really easy to curve it the other way if you want kind of a reverse look. And like I did, I wanted to kind of like, you know, kind of hug my little sentiment. So I just bent it and it worked great. Now, see this lightweight chipboard? It's like packaging that comes with rhinestones, for example. I often use lightweight chipboard to elevate elements on my cards. And recently someone asked me, where do you get this lightweight chipboard? Well, I don't really buy it. It usually comes from products like I just showed you. It's really lightweight, easy to die cut, but gives you a good amount of dimension. So here I've added 3 layers behind the word smile, and I feel like the white works great for the card I'm using. I don't mind that the edge is white. So I'm going to lay everything out now so I can figure out where I want the stamped part of my sentiment without adhering everything down, because you know, what if I mess up? Then I'm going to have to reconfigure my layout or stamp this on a separate sheet of paper and die cut it out. But I like the mix of the die cut word that says smile and then the stamped sub-sentiment. Thank you for your generosity. All right, now I love splatter. I love metallic splatter. I love different kinds of texture and dimension on my cards. So splatter is just one of those layers that I love to add. So I am taking some metallic watercolor from Altenew. I mixed it with a little bit of water to make it loose, and then I brushed it off the edge of a window sheet to give me a really fine splatter on this card. And it's gorgeous. It's like that little touch of something extra. You don't have to put it on, but it ties in the gold in that embossed sentiment. And love is in the details. So that's the little love detail on this card. Okay, now we're just arranging all the flowers. I like to lay them out again, make sure everything's where I want it while the glue's wet. I can scoot it if I need to. Sometimes I miss something. You'll see that in a moment, what I missed. And then I can just move those leaves around if I need to, and then glue everything in place. Now, the top flower in the corner there, I'm popping that one up for added dimension. And then it's time to add a few extra little blooms, that smallest flower die from the large die of the month. I die cut from some coordinating cardstock. I like the cardstock, I'm going to call it like a tablet of paper from scrapbook.com. They come in like neutrals and gems, or no, jewels and different color tones. I love those for die cutting. It's a little bit lighter weight, and I just really love having that kind of paper on hand. I can just tear one off the tablet, use it. I don't feel like guilty about using it instead of hoarding it. I love them. I'll link them for you below. Okay, so next I am adding some black-eyed beads to the center of my flowers because the tiny die cuts sometimes are just too much. Now, here's where I messed up and in moving my die cut leaf, I covered up the word or the Y in the word your. So it said, thank you for our generosity. I had to uncover that Y. So it made more sense. All right, so here I'm using my crease tool, my favorite crease tool from Trinity Stamps, to make sure my card base lays nice and flat, so it's really easy to add on that card front panel and get that nice white border all the way around that I love. Do you guys like a white border on your cards, or do you like when your background goes all the way to the edge? I'd love to know, because I tend to make my cards with borders more times than the other way. So let me know your thoughts on that. All right, here's one of those backgrounds of the butterflies. Now this was slightly warped and it was just not working for me. So I took another piece of lightweight chipboard and just adhered this down to it to help it lay flat so I could do other things with it. And that is to add this little border that is from the previous card where I die cut out the leaves. I'm going to save that and use. And now let's go ahead and use these butterflies in the manner in which they are intended, which is the Betterpress. So I've laid the butterfly on my platform for the Betterpress, and I'm adding my black Betterpress ink, and I'm going to press this into a piece of watercolor paper that I had in my stash. And then once that is ready to go, I just put that platform on top where my paper is taped to the top piece, and then run it through the die machine. And the die machine is going to press that image into the paper. So it's, recessed. It's hard to see on camera than it is in real life. but it's there. It's very cool. All right, so now I'm just cleaning off my plate. I'm cleaning off my platform with some archival ink cleaner. That does the trick. All right, then I'm bringing in the stencil. That is the free gift you can get if you get the deluxe caboodle. Almost every time since the deluxe caboodle has come out, the free gift will coordinate with one of the products from that month's release. So that is really cool. All right, I'm using a variety here of Distress Oxide inks to stencil the butterfly. I will say I was not super thrilled with how my colors came out, but the end result I thought was really gorgeous. Like, this butterfly is really gorgeous when it's all said and done. Yeah. But here is the first layer you can see, which is Crackling Campfire, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Okay, and then layer number 2, this is the part that kind of made me sad, is that this layer is really close in color to the Crackling Campfire. Like, to the naked eye, it's kind of hard to tell that it's a different color, and I really wanted 3 kind of shades of a reddish orange, and it's kind of hard to tell, don't you think? Also, I got the stencil a little bit off. I just repositioned it here and kind of went over those areas that had a little bit of white on them, and that really helped. Yep, so I did get some over the black, but it works out. So that second color I used was Abandoned Coral, and now I'm coming in with Ripe Persimmons. And this one definitely you can tell is different than the other two. And I still love the butterfly, and I still used it. But, you know, in hindsight, I would have changed it up a little bit more, just so you could tell the difference between the colors a little bit. So isn't that gorgeous? It is stunning. I think the black Betterpress, if you have a really good inky black pad for your Betterpress, it's so vibrant. It's so vibrant versus stamping. Anyways, it's really good. I love it on the watercolor paper. There's that texture to it. It's gorgeous. All right, so let's set that aside, that butterfly aside. Now we're going to do splattering that's a little bit bigger. So I have a different kind of paintbrush, just a watercolor type brush, and splattered that on, and I have some bigger splatters. Now, I always tend to put a little bit more splatter than I think I'm gonna need, because a lot of this will be covered up with the images I'm putting on this card. So I'm gonna make sure that I have splatter that's going to be seen once those pieces are put down. I added a tiny little strip of this coral colored cardstock so that I would tie in the colors of my butterfly with this card with these jade colors I just think are gorgeous. And I centered this, or laid it down where I thought it looked nice. And then I'm just going to trim off that excess, and that's going to really finish off the front of this card instead of having it hang off. All right, then I'm doing a sentiment from the Betterpress set for this card, and doing it the same way I did before. So putting the sentiment down onto that platform and inking it up. Now, I have a scrap there of cardstock, right? It's definitely going to fit my sentiment, but a lot of times when you're inking up your Betterpress things, you want it like press and twist when you're inking it up, and that can cause that plate to move. So if there's something you really want to make sure it's in the exact right spot, just take note of that. You might have to move it before you go ahead and press it. So my sentiment is ready to go. It's going to be put on with foam squares just as my butterfly is, but part of that sentiment will overlap the butterfly. So I don't want to put a foam square on the overlapping part. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue there. And then I love that look where things just slightly overlap. It really gives it a finished off look. So there's my card front ready to go on my card base. Again, I am going to have that white border all the way around. I think this card turned out so gorgeous. I love that kind of hint of the butterfly in the background. And the one that at the bottom that was really a lot more washed out is just covered, but it's still a subtle, pretty thing behind those leaves. So this card worked out great, and it was by happenstance because I saved that piece that the branches were on. Okay, let's move on to another card with that larger butterfly from the Betterpress. I'm going to do a little bit different stenciling on this one. So I am starting out with my lighter color, and I already cannot remember the coral color. Coral. Abandoned Coral? I think that's it. Yeah, and then I'm going to highlight that with Lumberjack Plaid. So this is a much darker red than the Crackling Campfire, and this is going to give each of those sections kind of an ombre look with that redder color more towards the center and that orangey color out towards the edge, and they'll just blend together really nicely. Yeah, just like that. Isn't that pretty? I love it. And I'm going to repeat it with the next layer on the stencil. So again, Abandoned Coral, and I think I got the name right this time. Yay! Yeah, so I'm using the blending brushes here that are from Spellbinders. These are really nice if you're doing a small area, and they come in a 3-pack, and there's 3 different sizes in that pack. So this one's a little bit smaller than the previous one, and that is really nice for getting in these small little corners. And I also like it for coloring die cuts. I'll show you that too. And then in this card, on this card right here, I'll show it to you. All right, so there's the 2 layers. We have one more layer for this butterfly to fill in, and I'm gonna do a totally new color for this section, and that's the Ripe Persimmons. But I also wanted to kind of give it an ombre look, so I'm going to keep it more concentrated in color towards the center and the highlight or less color on the edges, but I'm only doing that with those 2 bigger pieces at the top, and just gives a nice little highlight. I think this butterfly turned out beautiful. And again, there is a coordinating die to cut it out, which is so fun. This has to be one of my favorite Betterpress plate sets. Yeah, I really like it. I don't have a ton of butterfly things, so this really made me happy. All right, let's make a background for this one. Well, we've already made the background, right? But we need to like zhuzh it up, right? So this one is going onto a piece of that lightweight chipboard again. I had a little trouble with lining it up from the front, so when in doubt, just flip it over, right? Stick it on from the back, and that worked out really good. So there is that, nice and flat. Because I added it to that chipboard layer, it helps so much. All right, so now I am cutting out a piece of vellum, and I'll be honest, I wasn't sure if I was going to use the circle or the frame of the circle. I thought they both were really fun. So, you know, I'll just save the one I don't use on this card and use it for another one. And I did end up using the circle. Okay, I picked out this kind of vine from the large die of the month to go with this card and cut that out from the same paper that I did my butterfly from. And here I am pulling in the wax seal of the month for this card. It is so gorgeous. It's like a rose on an oval shape. So good. I am pulling out these wax beads, also from Spellbinders. Now, when you get the wax seal of the month, you're going to get wax with it. So you get the what they call the stamp, that metal part, and you get wax. And the rest of the kit that I'm using is also from Spellbinders. They have a starter kit for that. So if you aren't into wax sealing yet, you can totally get the kit from Spellbinders. All right, so I picked up that color, and I am scraping some of it off. I am not the best at this like 2-toned wax seal, but I love the look, and I'm just playing with it and, you know, doing my best. So does this come out perfect? No. No, it does not, but it was close enough, and it made me so happy with how well I did. Like, that's really good for me. So I'm going to keep it. I'm going to use it. I love it. I'm so happy with it. So that is really fun. But I had a little bit of black left. I had a little bit of that kind of coral red color left. So I decided, let's just mix them and see what happens. You know, I thought it would be a little less black, but I really love the color that it turned into. So here you can see it all melted together, and I'll just make one more wax seal. You'll see here I'm pouring it onto a little piece of marble. This is like a marble coaster, and that just helps the wax to cool a little bit faster. And I really like that for getting more symmetrical seals. And you do need to press the stamp into it a little bit. I found before I wasn't pressing enough, and I would get it off center a lot. So when I give it a little bit of a press, I get it a lot more centered. So there's my 2 wax seals. I love that kind of silvery pewter color that it turned into when I mixed the 2 colors. All right, let's do a sentiment for this one, also from the Betterpress set, and black ink, that same watercolor paper, a little note to cheer up your day. I thought that was really sweet. This could be for a lot of different occasions, even like if someone was under the weather or had a loss, or, you know, something hard happened. It's always nice to give a card then. I thought I would kind of soften up the edge of this card with a little bit of black. Now, this card really like took its own, you know, like it took on its own kind of life and led me in directions I wasn't originally planning. I end up doing this card in kind of that landscape form instead of portrait. I brought in some kind of metallic acrylic paint. Like when you turn this in the light, you can see, yeah, a little bit of metallic. I got that set of paints from ARTEZA years ago. I don't even know if they still have them. But it's a really fun set of paints. You could just do, you know, some watercolor or whatever you like for splatter, but play with it. Play with your splatter and bring out some things you probably haven't used in a while. All right, I'm using that Rustic Wilderness to add a little bit of green ink. I just wasn't loving my vines. I loved how they turned out, just adding a dusting of the green, but I'm not going to lie, on the card, I did not love them at all. So brace yourself for some upcoming surgery. Card surgery is about to happen in this video. So if you're like faint of heart, you might want to look away. Just a little warning. All right, so I tucked in those vines. I added a glue dot. That's where my wax seal is going to go. And ooh, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. And then for my sentiment, I am popping it up. It is going to overlap the wax seal just a tiny bit, but I didn't need to glue it necessarily down to the wax seal. It's going to overlap the butterfly, but I love this kind of collaged look, except for those leaves. I thought, oh, maybe some flowers. No, the flowers didn't do it. The vines just get lost. So I die cut out some vines from some matching coordinating green cardstock, and I thought I'll just lay them right over it. But I loved that kind of, you know, addition of the dusting of color. So I thought, well, let's add just a little bit of black soot, which is what I also used around the edge of the card, and tie that in and just darken these up a little bit and really help them pop off of the card. Now I love the vines that were there, but they were definitely glued in place and I was unable to like salvage them. So I decided they're just going to be a layer that helps pop these vines up. The other thing is that I'm not able to tuck it behind the butterfly. So I had to do some, like, you know, cutting. Like I said, this is card surgery. It's not for the faint of heart, but as a friend of mine once said, there's no stress in stamping, right? This is fun. It's just paper, right? It's for our enjoyment. It's to fill our cups and give us joy and bring joy to other people. So you might as well put joy into your cards because that's what we want when people get them, right? All right, so here's the second one. I was able to tuck this under that wax seal just a tiny bit, and it all worked out. In the end, I love the addition of these vines with the little dusting of black. So there's my card front. I didn't feel the need to add on those additional flowers. I just thought it kind of made it too busy. Nah. So I'll save those in the little envelope pouch that I have for my die set. This is going onto an A2 size card with a white frame. Yeah, I just kept it consistent. And when you're making a batch of cards like this, you can, you know, do some of those things that are consistent with all the other cards, and it makes group card making or batch making go a little bit faster, a little bit smoother, takes some decisions out of it for you. Yeah, and keeps you going. All right, I know there's a little something extra on this card that you see in these photos. I'll show that to you at the end, don't worry. Okay, so here's that second butterfly background. I'm gonna make a card with it using the stencil of the month. Yeah. This was a little crazy. It came to me in the night when I was sleeping. Like, this video took me a couple days to make. And I decided, I'm just going to try. Like, what am I going to waste? A piece of paper? Right? I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to lie. Here's the first stencil, and I'm going to use some Lumberjack Plaid ink. And I didn't really show the stenciling part. I thought I had turned the camera on, but I was already on and I turned it off. But there's the first layer, and I thought I was a little bit crazy. I don't know. This looks weird, but sometimes you have to just keep going. So let's put on stencil layer number 2. These stencils do have etched lines in the corners, and they also have a number, so you know which stencil to do in what order. Also, this stencil is made for a piece of paper that is 5.5 by 4 1/4, a full panel size. But you know, I'm making the white edge. So what I did is I added my card front piece to a lightweight piece of chipboard, but it was 5.5 by 4 1/4, and I can always trim it down after I do my stenciling, and that just made it easier for me to line up. Okay, so here's the abandoned coral layer. Still not sure about my decision. or if I was ever going to share this with you. And then now this is stencil number 3. This is going to do the centers of the flowers, but also add some smaller flowers in there as well. I'm using saltwater taffy. Where was this color the whole time I was making this video? This is probably the color I meant to get at the very beginning. I love this color. I use it a lot with my abandoned coral and my lumberjack plaid. I love these 3 colors together. So that's the one I used. And then for this one, it has those smaller flower centers. I'm using black. I just like the look of black in today's cards. Just it adds that extra little pop of something. Like usually when you think of like a pop of color, you're thinking of like, oh, let's add a splash of red or whatever. But today's pop of color is black and I love it. Love it. Also, I want to mention I am inking over an inked background, right? So it was important to me that I had fairly good coverage. So what I did is I went over all of these twice. So I, stenciled, did the whole thing, stenciled again. And I was kind of layering up my ink, but giving it the tiniest amount of time to dry before that second layer went on. Now this one, my first layer, I just used the green ink that was already in my brush. And then I thought I would be like super fancy and just add my darker Rustic Wilderness to most of the image and leave a tiny bit of a highlight. Once I did that 2 times, of course, I went back over the whole thing with my larger blending brush and just really softened out that blend. So I was pretty excited about, I love stenciling and seeing how it turns out. And I did not hate this in the end. I know it's a little crazy. Is it crazy? I don't know, but I just went for it. I decided let's add some black glitter butterflies. Now, when I was walking past my die set to go die cut those black glitter, black glitter butterflies, I decided what if I hung this or put it on top of my background? So I backed it with some rip and stick sheets to turn it into a sticker and just stuck it on there because don't you think people would hang this kind of birdcage or atrium as a decor element without necessarily loading it up with flowers? Yeah. So I just went for it. And this is on an A2 size card, which I thought it was important for you to see how it looks on that smaller size card. And this maybe, it kind of took on a life of its own. But my tip for you is if that little idea pops into your head and you're like, no, I already have a plan for this card. Sometimes just stop and do that idea, even if it seems crazy. You might like it. It might lead to new ideas. It really helps like boost your mojo. All right, so we added a sentiment here. It says hugs. This is from the clear stamp of the month, as well as the sub sentiment, sending you a little flutter of happiness. Isn't that cute? So these are just stamped in black on white cardstock, except the hugs I did emboss with black powder to make it nice and shiny. And then I added on all those butterflies. I did 5 and glued those down where the sentiments are popped up. Now, to make my butterflies even more fancy, I decided to add some glossy, it's not glossy accents, it's glaze from Spellbinders. They have this glaze. Mine's a super old bottle. They've updated their bottle since, but it lasts a long time. So I've yet to need a new one. And then I brought in some gems. These have that really pretty coralish color and a bit of iridescent shine. And I thought I'd put them on the butterflies and just scatter them around. Once you get your hands on and pour out some embellishments, do you find it's like really hard to stop? Like, that's enough. Stop putting gems. I couldn't. I had to keep going. I even put one more on after that. I found it on my mat. I was like, oh, I'll just stick it down. It's fine. All right, so here's all the cards. While we're waiting for those butterflies to dry, let's just look at all the cards I made today. You can see how the colors somewhat go together. I really need kind of a jade color in Distress Oxide ink. Like, what color am I missing that's jade-like? If you know your Distress Oxide inks, let me know in the comments below. What jade color of ink would go with this green I used? So also, nearby my die cut machine, I have this like free pack, this little sample of these glittered enamel dots that came with my Not Too Shabby subscription box. If you're totally into subscription boxes, Not Too Shabby has some also. I'll give you a link for that in the description box too if you want to check it out. But this is just like a free gift that came with it, and I thought it matched this card, and I was like, I got to do it. Now that that idea came to me, I've got to add some embellishment. So I did that, and here's a look at my butterflies when the glaze has dried. Now, sad part is that you can't really tell that they're glittered. I am a little sad about that, but the card, the finished card in and of itself, I do love. So there's my 5 cards featuring my club kits from Spellbinders for January 2025. And I just thank you so much for stopping by and, hanging out with me for 40 minutes. You're amazing. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing and liking and chatting with me. And if you have friends that love cards, you could share this with them and see if they like it too. Thanks again. I'll see you again very soon. Happy stamping. Bye.